Hi everyone, welcome back to my vlog. I am Robin, or a Hobbit's reading list. This week, I don't know how much reading we're actually going to get done, realistically. I'm still going to film, but I'm also going to be preparing to go to Massachusetts on Saturday, so this will also end Friday night. So it's going to be a shorter vlog, and we will finish the Inimitable Jeeves, and we will also probably start on at least an audiobook for my June TBR. So that's the plan, so let's go ahead and get to it. Good morning. I didn't record last night because we ended up going to a friend's house for the basketball game, the Eastern Conference, whatever. I don't care. So sorry for people who like basketball watching my channel. Once it's football season, I'll have more enthusiasm, but probably not much. I'm not a huge sports ball person. I did, however, end up reading more of the Inimitable Jeeves. I have, I believe, 4 chapters left. So, the Inimitable Jeeves. I'm angry at Wodehouse for creating such a difficult title name. Is about Bertie Wooster and his valet Jeeves, and how much he relies on Jeeves. And so previously when I've read Wooster and Jeeves, it's been in short stories. And so this is more of a novel, but there are some chapters where I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, it doesn't really have a lot of similarities with the other chapters. So I'm not quite sure how to describe it. But the overarching plot is that Bertie has the worst friends. Seriously, all of them suck. And this one, who is called Young Bingo, I think his real name is like Richard or something, but they call him Young Bingo. I don't understand that part. But this friend of Bertie's is like constantly falling in love. And in the like 60% that I've read, he's fallen in love with 4 different women. And he always, like, ropes Bertie into it and then doesn't, like, he's not gracious. He routinely calls Bertie names, and, like, I don't like him. He's a horrible friend. But the section where I'm at now, they're, like, staying at this, like, country house or something. And Bingo has just discovered that, like, the girl he was in love with is engaged to someone else. And so he's, like, being all sad. And so he's roping Bertie into this, like, betting scheme to cheer him up, pretty much. And that's where I'm at. So, it's hard because I like Bertie a lot. Like, my dad pointed out that Bertie sort of reminds him of me, which I get it. I do get it. I have my moments where I just don't think things through. So I like Bertie. I like Jeeves. He's very, like, dry, and he's very quietly opinionated, especially when it comes to, like, clothing that Bertie wears. The thing that kills me about it is that, like, there's always this, like, friend of Bertie's, and most of the time they just really suck, and that's sort of what kills the story for me. Because I'm like, Bertie's so nice. Like, he's a little dumb, but he's so nice, and he routinely does everything he can to help people. And then his friends just, like, call him an ass. like a donkey, like literally. And I'm just like, why are you friends with him? So yeah, that usually impacts my enjoyment of the story because I feel like it's just mean. So we'll see what happens. I will try to read more today. I actually want to finish a chapter that I started last night because I was reading it during the basketball game and I got like 5 pages in, and then Chris was like, all right, the game's over, let's go. And I'm like, oh, if I knew we were leaving this soon, I wouldn't have started another chapter. So I want to finish that one because it bothers me. Other than that, I did my June TBR yesterday. And so since I've had resolved that I wasn't going to finish my May TBR, I'm going to go ahead and just start the June one because there's no point. Like I can't get the audiobook versions of the 2 books that I had left. I'm just not going to finish it. That's fine. But that means that I had to go through my list and figure out or find a book that had an audiobook version that I could get at the library, so I didn't have to buy another Audible credit because that didn't work well for me last week. For people who haven't seen it, I used an extra Audible credit without listening to the sample, and it turns out that I hated the narrator's voice, so therefore I wasted money. But anyway, so it took me a little bit to find a book that was available at my library because they just didn't have any. And it wasn't even that like other people had them. Like they just did not have audiobook versions of a lot of the books. So we'll see what happens. I did end up getting the audiobook version of Here All Along by Sarah Hurwitz, which is it's writings, and I don't know if I would say it's a memoir. It's maybe a little. It's Sarah's experience with like rediscovering Judaism in her 30s and like after a bad breakup, sort of comparing it to how she grew up and she being surprised that she didn't know how beautiful, you know, the rituals and traditions in Judaism could be, and why didn't she know that when she was younger. So it sounds really interesting. I had a lot of people recommend it to me from Temple, and so that's why it was on my list. So I'm really glad that I'm finally able to read it, and I'm hoping that because it is the audiobook version that I won't take so long to read it, because with nonfiction, even if it's nonfiction that I'm really interested in, it just takes me a really long time. So I'm hoping that because it's on audiobook, I'll be able to get through it decently well. But we'll see. So I think that's about it. So now I have to go back to doing all the things that I have to do before I leave for Boston this weekend. All right, let's go. Good morning. It is Wednesday. This is gonna be a short vlog. I haven't read any more of the Inimitable Jeeves, but I have read I've listened to 2 hours of Here All Along by Sarah Hurwitz. I'm really enjoying it. It's like a mixture between like a commentary on Judaism and a memoir, which I actually really like. I like that it's not just like, this is what the Torah is. But it's also about the author's own experience of relearning the Torah and sort of her thought process about like the different stories, because the Torah is beautiful, but it has a lot of like just like strange things or like things that don't necessarily work within a modern context anymore. So I appreciate the commentary and like walking through her thought process of how she interprets those sections. So I think that's really nice. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm eager to listen to more today. I can pretty much only listen to like a chapter on my drive because they are pretty long. Like one of the chapters yesterday was like 50 minutes and then the other one was like 55. which is fine. But it does mean that I will not be finishing it before I go to Boston. So I don't know how I'm gonna do that. Because if I only listen to it when I'm driving, then I won't finish it until the 13th of June, probably, and that just seems like a lot. So we'll see. But I'm hoping, well, I need to finish the Inimitable Jeeves by tomorrow morning, but I also need to edit and finish packing and clean. I still have a lot to do, essentially. So I'm trying really hard to freak out. I also have my usual like writing date tomorrow, and like when we met last week, I didn't write. I was like cleaning my inbox, and I'm gonna feel really bad if I again don't write tomorrow. But I'm also just like, I don't know if I have time. So we'll see. I'll just have to make it work. But I will be finishing at least a book this week, which sucks if that's like the only book that I finish. But I also like, I don't know what else to do. I have a lot of stuff I have to do before we leave, because like we have to clean, because my father-in-law is coming over to like check on the cats, and we don't want it to be like horribly messy. Plus my dad and sibling are staying the night Friday before we leave for Massachusetts the next day. Yeah. So I'm gonna go do stuff, and hopefully I'll read at some point in here. Okay, so this is gonna be a really short vlog because I am not gonna do a ton of reading. I finished the Inimitable Jeeves, which I will talk about in a second. And I've also listened to more of Here All Along. I think I'm like 40% through. And so I'll talk about both of those. But I have so much to do pretty much before I go to work tomorrow, because once I'm at work, I can't like edit and stuff like that because I'm not at my desktop. I'm starting to feel the pressure of like all the things that I have to do before we leave. And I was planning on ending the vlog tomorrow night anyway, so I was going to try to edit most of it today and then just add on whatever I film tomorrow, which I will still do, but it's just going to be me talking about Here All Along, because now that I've finished Jeeves, I'm not going to read more today because I just have too much to do. So I'm sorry if this is like a little boring and you're just getting me freaking out every day. But I did finish the Inimitable Jeeves. I did enjoy it. My issue with like a lot of the Wodehouse books, particularly with Jeeves and Wooster, is the side characters, the like characters that bring in like the plot for, you know, Birdie to freak out about and then Jeeves to solve. Like, they're always just like the worst people. Like, these are people who claim Birdie as a friend, and yet they treat him horribly. And so it's one of those things where like that really impacts my enjoyment, because in this one, the main like friend that keeps popping up is named Richard, but he goes by Bingo, which like the nicknames drive me crazy. And he's just a huge like a-hole. He calls Birdie ugly all the time, and then he just takes advantage of him like left, right, and center. Like, he's such a horrible friend, and I just want Birdie to just like stop having horrible friends. So that really impacts my enjoyment of it, because Birdie just tries to help people. You know, he's just young and dumb and easy to trick. And I did appreciate getting to see Birdie like more tired of things, more just like, okay, but you said you loved the last one, and the one before that, and the one before that. But that also makes it a little hard also, because like I can see him being manipulated, and like I think he realizes he's being manipulated, and he still just does it anyway. So I gave the Inimitable, which I will be so happy when I don't have to pronounce that anymore. I gave the Inimitable Jeeves a 4-star because I did like it. I definitely liked it more than Mike and Smith. But I think as far as like Wodehouse books that I've gotten, it's not my favorite. I would honestly say my favorite is still, I think, Something Fresh, which is not Jeeves and Wooster. Because I've only ever read, this is my second Jeeves and Wooster book. So hopefully they get better in the future, but I don't think they do. From what my dad has told me, I don't think they get better. At least not the friends, which is the main thing that sort of kills it for me. But other than that, so I'm not planning on reading anymore today. So that's that. Sorry. I did listen to more of Here All Along by Sarah Hurwitz yesterday. Like I said, I'm like 40% through. The parts that I listened to yesterday talked about the Torah, talked about the Talmud, and how Sarah sort of like conceptualizes God for herself, because and I think it was a really interesting chapter, and I really want to like go back through some point in the future and like highlight, because I'm listening to an audiobook, and so that's why I'm so far along in it. But it was just really interesting talking about all the different ways that anyone, but like particularly like Jewish people, can conceptualize God, and like especially between the different like denominations of Judaism. And I just really appreciate the way that she sort of laid it out, where she was like, this is what this certain group believes, this is what this certain group believes, there's some overlap here, this is what I believe, but if you believe something else, like that's cool too. Like it's a very sort of like impartial memoir / like intro to Judaism. I don't know if I would read this as like an introductory book, because there are mentions to like different like midrash and stuff like that like I feel like if this is your first foray into Judaism, you get maybe a little lost. So, but I think for where I am, like I'm really enjoying it. I think it is really cool. I sort of find myself comparing it to, and I'm gonna say her name wrong, but Abigail Pogrobin. I will put it on the screen, like here. But she wrote the book My Jewish Year, which pretty much she's immersing herself in Judaism throughout a full like calendar year, and all the holidays and her experiences with that. And so it reminds me of that in a way, because it's women who are born Jewish but weren't raised like religiously or anything like that, and then coming into Judaism religiously later in life. And so I think it's really interesting. So it's sort of making me remember my Jewish year, which I have no issue with. I really enjoyed my Jewish year. It's still on my shelf. It's annotated the crap out of it because it was one of the first books I read when I was converting. So yeah, I think I'm really enjoying it. I'm really bummed that I'm not going to be able to finish it before I go to Boston, because I know I'm not going to listen to an audiobook while I'm in Massachusetts. So that means I don't know, maybe I'll crack and get in on Kindle so I can keep reading. But I did also figure out what other book I'm going to bring with me to Massachusetts. So I was already going to bring The Boston Girl, because I need to have that read by June 12th. But I asked Siri to pick a book, and she picked the annotated Hobbit. And so I'm like, cool, can't wait to go on a plane with my like tote bag with 2 hardcover books. Thanks, Siri, but it's whatever. I'm not particularly drawn to any book in particular, so any paperback book that I have, like it's fine. A book is a book. I honestly am not sure if I will be reading at all, and so at this point I kind of feel like I'm just bringing along like pretty accessories for the house. But so that's my update. I'm gonna try to film some B-roll so you can see just like how chaotic my day is, but I still have to like film and stuff, and yay. So this is going to be my last clip for this vlog because I listened to about another hour of Here All Along on my way to work, but the next chapter is like, it's like 70 minutes at least, and the drive to go pick up my dad and sibling from the airport in a little bit is only like 30 minutes, so I don't have time to listen to another chapter before I get them. So this is all the reading that I'm gonna do this week. It's not a lot, which kind of sucks, but I also, there wasn't anything I could do. You guys saw, like, I just had a lot going on, and so I did what I could. The last chapter of Here All Along was really interesting. It was about like Jewish ethics and like going into some of the different like laws of, like, there were like the laws of kosher, but there are also, it also went into this like set of values, I guess is like the best word for it, called musar, which is just like the difference between being essentially like a good enough person and a great person. And so what I really appreciated is that the author went into the difference of, like, Jewish ethics say that you should do this, which like is more like how to, yes, take care of yourself, but also put a lot of thought into how your actions impact other people, versus like she's an American, and so she's talking about like how American law is very different, to where it's pretty much just like, don't do bad things, not necessarily help others. And so she mentioned like essentially the role of like bystanders. So in Jewish ethics, it says that like if you see someone being hurt or taken advantage of or suffering in some way, like you should step in and try to help. Whereas like American law says that like you don't have to do that. If you are not participating in whatever is happening, you don't need to involve yourself. You don't need to call 911. It's not illegal to not engage. Which, like, okay, fine. But also, it just, the difference between, and I can't remember the terms, it's a difference between, like, I know one of them is like non-maleficence versus, it's not beneficiary, but it's a word very close to beneficiary, so that's what I'm gonna stick with. It's like, it's the difference between good enough and great. Like, and so I really appreciated the discussion, because that isn't something that I have a lot of conversations about, and it's not something I have a lot of like exposure to. It's just like Jewish ethics in general. Like I know the, you know, the mitzvot and everything. I mean, I don't know all of them because there are like 600, but I know like the general idea. But, and this is something that Sarah, the author, brought up as well, is that like she had been operating on this like good enough level of like, don't lie, don't cheat, don't kill people, don't steal, etc. But there's more to it. If you actually abide by the mitzvot, you are not a good enough person, you are a great person. And so that was really interesting, and it piqued my curiosity. I want to learn more about the ethics of the mitzvot. So yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. And I think that was a good chapter to sort of like end it on. And I'll think about it throughout the week. But thank you for watching my vlog, where I did very little reading, but many other things. Like the video, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell so that you see my next video, because that one will be the travel vlog, which will probably also have very little reading, but a lot of very pretty views. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.